So I have the absolute pleasure of being able to speak to my good friend and longtime advocate, Mr. Ash Borland. How are you, my friend?
Excited to be on this, finally.
It's great to see you. And obviously, for those who don't know, which I guess you've probably been living under a rock, Ash and I have worked together for many years. In fact, you supported me with my personal brand and building the Protection Coach brand.
Yeah, it's been,
Amazing. What do you think the biggest misunderstanding you hear from advisors in terms of their understanding of personal branding as a concept?
Yeah, so I think the biggest mistake that people think, or the misconception, is that you have to have a personal brand or a business brand. And I think that honestly, the two coexist together. In fact, they should coexist together. It's not an either or choice. And I think that's probably the biggest one. A lot of people, especially when they're starting out, are scared of personal branding because they think that they can't maybe sell their business, scale and sell their business later. You can still do both. And actually, a lot of the times, you're probably just putting things in your way just to stop you from doing it. Realistically, just get off and build it, because your personal brand is it's the easiest asset. But as we say, me and you will go back time and time again. We've gone for a long time, and it's this situation with me and you of like, when I met you, it was like, look, leverage your personal brand because everyone knows who you are. And everyone, advisors, whether you're a protection advisor, wealth advisor, mortgage advisor, all of you guys will have a stronger personal brand, most likely than you do a business brand at the beginning. So you can leverage both, but it's not an either or. And I think that's probably one of the biggest mistakes I see people make.
And that's a brilliant point. And I think, if you think about using me as the example there, what happened when we started to leverage my personal brand is actually the offerings started to evolve slightly. In that originally we were doing it, we're trying to attract individuals to come and join a coaching program. We're going to teach them how to write protection business properly, sell more of the protection solutions out there. And that kind of then evolved because as the personal brand grew, we leveraged it even more to then start doing speaking engagements, webinars, courses, that sort of thing. And it's funny how that takes a different route. And often that's not planned, right? So I think maybe advisors are not taking advantage of the idea that personal brand can become quite an amazing tool to leverage if you do it right.
Yeah, hugely. It's one of the best tools. I think that it's one of the things that can evolve with you. You just said it then. It can evolve with you. It can grow with you, and new opportunities will arise. But I think that we've put too much pressure on what we need to be now. And actually, we need to create something that's fluid, that's liquid, that allows us to evolve and grow with us. And personal branding is that. Oftentimes, I see people who will brand their business. They'll create a brand around their business because we need to focus on this specific thing, and then they outgrow it. And you can outgrow businesses and shed them like skins, like some sort of snake. But with your personal brand, that's the one that's always going to be with you. No matter what company you join, no matter, so if you're employed, self-employed, whatever, you are always going to be you. And I think you should always invest in you first, in my opinion.
Yeah, I completely agree. And then you can evolve, you can adapt, as long as you do it strategically, as long as you do it. And we talked about this before on certainly like drip feeding things and doing it in a strategic way. And that's why it's so important, because it's that authentic version of yourself that you're putting out there that allows you to pivot and to change as and when you go through those changes. Now, I think for a lot of people listening, and I remember when I first started out in particular, I think this is probably pre you and I working together, I did find social media overwhelming. What platform do I use? How frequently do I post? What type of content do I put there? Who's my avatar? Who am I trying to reach? What am I trying to do? And it can overwhelm people to the point where they get a bit of paralysis. They don't actually do anything, right? So what kind of tip would you give to advisors to help them understand the importance of showing up consistently without it becoming a full-time job or being overwhelmed by it all?
Yeah, so the way to look at it is that you need to show up consistently because you want to grow your business. Into 2025, I'm recording this, that is the number one way. When I first was an advisor years ago, the number one way to get leads was introducers, estate agents, accountants, any form of referral partner. And then you had your client bank and you want to repeat business. It'd be the same with insurance. It'd be the same thing. But nowadays, the number one way to get business is online. It's social media and all of its kind of counterparts around that. And so my advice to people when they say, I get overwhelmed, I'm like, well, if you want to do this job, this is part of the job. It's not a nice and like a little add-on anymore. It is you. It's your digital identity. And so the sooner you get your head around that and you start to align your values and who you are with that, it gets a lot easier. But I would also say with that, don't worry too much about it. Just show up and be consistent. The more you do that, the better you're going to be. Video content is the best for that, but it clones you. It's your voice, your face. But even just showing up as however written or whatever at the beginning is fine, but you need to show up. You have to show up. Otherwise, why are you in business? And I really do think it's as serious as that.
I agree with you. I think for me, video was a huge part of that. because it allowed me to put myself out there, to show people who I was, to be more sincere, more genuine, more authentic. And that led to my brand developing. And I know you've always been a big advocate for video. You mentioned it just there. So why do you think it's so powerful? And I suppose a great tip, and I imagine there's so many people listening to this going, yeah, and I'd love to do video. I'd love to do video, but actually every time I put the camera on, I stutter my words, I pause, I get nervous, I get sweaty, I go pale, and I decide I'm never going to do it again because it seems overwhelming. So given that we're both big advocates for video, and we both know how impactful it can be, if you could briefly explain, one, why it's so powerful, and two, what tips you give advice if they're super nervous about doing video content.
Yeah, of course. So why is it so powerful really quickly is because it is you. You clone yourself. And it's the fastest way to create that know, like, and trust that we need to do. Any written, or if you haven't done anything before, fine, written or anything like that, that's fine. And it gets you out there, but it doesn't get you out there anywhere near as much. 10x the result when it comes to video, because the faster we can get a client to hear your voice, know your face, what they do is they build what is known as a parasocial relationship, meaning they build a relationship with you. It's like a one-way relationship. So they already know you before they meet you. And we have these with all our influencers online. It's the same thing. So that's why video is so important, is think of it as like the pre-discovery call. It's getting people to know you when they come on the call. They already recognize your face. They already recognize your voice. They recognize some of the words you're saying, the patterns of words you're saying, and how you explain things. So you have that to your advantage. Now, if we think about it in that way, and then we think about what's the tip I would give on that, well, think about it is this, was don't think about your content as I need to go viral or I need to create value. Think about your content as exactly that, of a pre-discovery call thing. So it is about saying the things you would say to somebody if you were on a call with them. That's all it is. That's all you have to do. And I actually say this to people often. Your content, all it needs to be is the process you do within your business, and your ideal client, like avatar, whoever they may be, that's going to be your content. And then just speak. I'm going to do all this stuff. And I'm like, look, honestly, you've got bigger problems in your business if you are worried that you can't answer. If you can't answer that question, irrelevant of a camera in front of you, maybe you shouldn't be doing the job. And I think that, and it's harsh, but it's true. And so just remove the fluff out of it. You're an expert. You're going to sell insurance. Then show up and sell it wherever you are. That's my personal take on it.
I think that's brilliant. What I really loved what you said there is this idea of almost this, I mean, I wrote it down, parasocial relationship. I think it's great. This idea of almost being able to build rapport with a customer before they even land on the call, because you've done this pre-discovery activity, which I think that's like a really lovely way of looking. It's a really lovely analogy. Now, you and I have spoken in the past about niche positioning. And if you think about what I've done as a protection coach, that's quite a niche offering. It's like, I deal with these types of customers. And as time's gone on, I've even evolved that even further. And now I'm very specific about the types of organizations and institutions that I work with. Why do you think niche positioning is so important when it comes to social media? And how can someone out there listening to this, one of the audience, how can they start to kind of narrow their focus and be clear about what their niche looks like?
So big thing with this is there's a difference between niche marketing and niche product. So everybody thinks I need to work with, I'm going to only work with this one person. No, you're not. Your marketing is marketing to a specific niche, but the products serve anybody who needs the product. And if somebody comes to work with you who's outside, like me and you, I work with mortgage advisors. You're not a mortgage advisor, you're a coach, but you fall within it. You came to me, we work together. That's kind of how it works. So there's a difference between niche marketing and niche product. Now, the reason you want a niche is because if you stand for something, people will be attracted to that. It means that your examples and your references are going to be more relatable. If it's too broad, which is what your larger companies, I call them the Goliaths, we're the Davids. We need to approach that way. We need to act like that. We need to feel like we're speaking to them. Now, that's why it's important. Now, how do you do it? It's actually way more simple than people think. Don't just think I need to work with X type of client because someone told me they earn a lot of money or they have a good, like a desire or a need to be protected. What you need to look at is go, who of the last 30 clients, let's take the last 30 clients I did, let's look at these things about them. Where are they from? So where's their geographic location? What do they think and feel? What is their psychographic? And what is their demographic? Meaning, are they male? Are they female? What job role do they have? I call that the niche triangle. Your niche is in the middle of that, and it will move like our brands will move. Your niche will move. And as long as you're following that, your content, your ideal client is the person that sits in the middle of that. And you will have it. You have the data to your hands. All you have to do is just do that. And if you do that, you just tailor your message to those people and you've won. You don't have to go, I only do income protection for doctors or something like that. You don't have to do that. And in fact, it's very outdated and old. And when people do it that way, it doesn't work, to be completely frank with you.
There's something to be said, by the way, for picking a client demographic or even picking a marketing strategy that you enjoy. So I often talk to advisors when I'm doing my coaching work about sort of, they go out in these campaigns and you say you've got 80% of your problems come from 20% of your clients, yet they're targeting those 20% of clients. There's more to be said for thinking, who do I like to work with? Who makes my life easy? Where can I have great conversations? What do I like to talk about? And then actually that can feed in, because my opinion is if it's a subject matter you're passionate about, you enjoy, you want to talk about, you're far more likely to show up and be consistent in how you do it. I think it'd be great, and it's probably a pertinent point then, given we're kind of focusing on these type of things that advisors do that maybe limit their potential or damage their social media presence. What are some of the more common mistakes that you see advisors making on social media, and what do you think they could do to avoid them?
Common mistakes: over editing a video is a big one. That's a massive one. Less is more when it comes to your videos. The more real and authentic and organic it looks, the better. Plus, the less editing you do to it. So like, look at what we did with your videos, for example. It's just you in your office and you're there, and then it's just some text that comes on screen, which is generated from Instagram. Like, it's really straightforward and clean, because you're a consultant. So you're not a videographer. And if you started to learn how to do videography, instantly it's going to show that you don't know what you're doing with that. And then what is known as the halo effect, which is, if that's bad, then the public will assume that everything else is bad, and it's not. One of the best things you can do is just bit of subtitles and hold your phone, talk to your phone. It's just do it like that. That's the first one. The second big mistake, I think, is everyone wanting to be different. Don't try to be different, just try to be consistent. If you're trying to be different, then it means it's not yet done. It's unrecognized. It's not real at this point. And so because of that, you are trying to step outside of what the client would associate with the issue, with the thing you do. And so it means that if it requires them more than 3 seconds to think about that thing and go, oh, okay, that's mortgages, or that's insurance, or that's whatever, it ain't going to work. A confused mind never buys. So instead, show up with them all the time with the same thing, but be most consistent and most clear. If you are really clear and really consistent, the creativity bit is really not that important. And I think those two things are massive. Don't over edit, and don't think you need to be different. Just be better, or just consistent.
Do you know, I couldn't agree with you more. And I agree with the guys, the editing of the videos. My videos are about as basic as you can do them. I literally stand in front of a ring light. I use Big View for my teleprompting, and it's a very quick, simple edit. In fact, usually I'm just trimming 2 ends off it in terms of the start of recording, the end of the recording. I don't feel the need to overproduce it, because I think it would just detract from what it is I'm trying to talk about. And that's the funny thing about it, is often, like, I agree with you, an overproduced video, it's hard to sustain that level of editing and productivity, by the way. And you talk about time saving things. It's like, who wants to do that? Whereas I could probably produce maybe 30 or 40 videos in a couple of hours quite comfortably by just recording, trimming, cropping, putting on social media and scheduling them in, rather than thinking, well, I've got to go through some massive production technique where I'm bringing AI imagery in and beautiful captions and all this sort of stuff. And for me, that's one of the best ways in which I feel I can be consistent in what I do, because I'm not having to overcomplicate everything.
It doesn't matter how great it is. If it's overproduced in a wrong way, it's very hard to do a good video produced. So you will give the wrong message.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more. It's honestly, I could talk to you all day, actually. I could. You and I, we've often had sessions together where it's run significantly over, because we can't help but share best practices, thoughts and ideas. And, I've been very grateful for the work that you've done with me in terms of helping me do this sort of stuff. So I think everything that you're offering is going to help those that are listening. They're really going to take so much from it. Do you have any kind of final messages you want to put out there to the advisors who are maybe struggling to show up online, or what they ought to be doing just to at least kind of get that movement happening?
Well, the first message I say, start now. And the second one is, it's this, like, be the advisor you want to be today. Love this thing. I read the quote today, which was, it says, be, do, and then have, meaning be who you want to be. So if you want to be the advisor who's educating people online, then be that person today. Start today, become that person in your mind. Then do the things they do, which would be make that content, and then you'll have everything you want at the end. You'll get all the leads, you'll get all of the best client outcomes that you want. But if you are constantly saying that's someone else, that I eventually will be that person, or I hope to be, you are that person today. Every one of us, me on here, you here, Matt, we've all been and started as somebody who had no idea how to turn on a camera, no idea how to talk to the camera, no idea how to use social media, no idea how to generate significant amounts of business online. And both of us have done it. Yeah, Matt still doesn't really know. but we can all do, it's possible. We all started there.
It's true. And I would sit here and say, I'm being quite open with this. I still don't think I know how to optimize a lot of what I do. I don't think I still use social media as effectively as I possibly could. You and I have talked about this in the past. I'm still quite basic in some respects. And it just goes to show, for me, you're right, Ash, it's this case of turn up tomorrow, do it, make it happen. It's been an absolute pleasure. Honestly, I love chatting to you. I can't thank you enough for turning up. I think you've given some amazing tips to the listeners, and I'm sure they'll be able to run away with that. Where else can people find you, Ash?
Best place to go to my YouTube channel, which is Ash Borland. If you search there, all my content's on there. That's where the best stuff is. You can find me every other chat platform as well. So you can search me there as well.
Brilliant. Thanks so much for coming in today.